Greetings, everybody. I want to welcome you back to another edition of the Monarchy of Israel series. And in this video, I'm just going to share this article, but then I'm going to kind of bring back to remembrance of the reason why I started out the series revolving around the Jesuits and the Vatican and the Counter-Reformation that basically started the movement of dispensationalism is going to come full circle, and that today's Jews are really caught in the crosshairs of deception and lies, even in the ranks of their own religion of Judaism. And and that's basically what I'm doing, is basically showing is the aspect that they too are involved in this great delusion that is really taking shape throughout this whole planet. But before I get into continuing this interlude video, basically, because basically the video that follows, we're basically going to have a geography lesson, okay, and these types of things. And this is why I'm bringing you this article. Now, when I talked about DNA in the past in recent videos, what I should have mentioned is what I failed to mention is that what DNA proves, and a lot of people that are in the realms borderlining racism and these types of things will use this to basically subjugate those of Judaism, just because they don't have 100% descendancy to Abraham, which no one on this planet does. They will automatically throw them in the Khazar camp. Now, I do want to mention that Khazaria and Khazar, that is not a conspiracy theory. That is fact. There was a kingdom that was named Khazaria, and there was a king that upheld Judaism as its authoritative religion, and there were converts, a lot of converts. Majority of the people that lived there were converts into Judaism, thus making themselves Jews. And we're going to go into that. We're going to go into the meaning of why some Jews call themselves Ashkenazim. We're going to go into Sephardic. And like I said, DNA basically proves what the Bible said in Acts, that God made all the nations of the earth of one blood. Okay, that's really all it proves. So, and hopefully that kind of like clears out a little of this thing that one race is higher than another, or is descended from a patriarch like Abraham, or and these types of things. That it's not about the flesh, okay? Because God wants to save all people. He wishes that none would perish. God is not a respecter of persons. And really, in my point, not to, say, oh, the Jews are evil, and they're all damned for hell because they're all descended from Khazar and these types of things. This is not why. This is not the reason why I put forth the whole DNA thing. Now, there are some people out there that used this article when this came out, but they totally just seems like they didn't read the whole thing, and they basically took it out of context. Okay, so I'm going to go over this article, and then I'm going to go over. We're going to go back to what I started this series from, to kind of bring back the overview of what the complete circle of this series is. Okay, because basically what I've been doing is going through the centuries, basically from the time of Daniel, through the New Testament to 70 A.D., and basically we're at the point where there was this scattering, and now you have the three main, I would have to say, branches, if you will, of Jewry, which is, you got those that descended from Khazaria, and you got those that are of Ashkenazim, Western Europe, southern Western Europe, and you got Sephardic, which is basically mainly the Jews of the Middle Eastern descent. And as far as percentage goes, I would have to say that if any branch of Jews today have a clear physical lineage to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, it would be the Sephardic Jews, because the Sephardic Jews were always in the Middle Eastern region. They have always been in the Middle Eastern region. Yes, they migrated to Spain, but they were always in the realms of the Middle East. So that, by percentage alone, leads me to believe that out of all three of those sects, the Sephardics probably have more of a heritage that dates back to Genesis, more so than the European Jews and these types of things. Again, that's basically what this DNA research that a lot of people have just taken out of context basically proves. Okay. So, it goes on to say, long-standing controversy settled. DNA shows Ashkenazi female line descended from southern and western Europe, not the Near East. Many of the maternal ancestors of modern Ashkenazi Jews were European converts, according to a research project headed by a University of Huddersfield professor. The young science of archaeogenetics has been used to settle a long-standing controversy. The origin of Europe's Ashkenazi Jews. Are they principally descended from forebears who migrated from Palestine in the 1st century AD, or were their ancestor Europeans who converted to Judaism? That word Ashkenazim is a very interesting word, and we're going to get into that when we go into the geography lesson in the following video after this one. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. I'm not going to spoil it yet. It's kind of like, ooh, what is it? What is it? I'm not going to spoil it yet, but it is interesting to say the least. A new article in the leading journal Nature Communications claims to have settled the question. Analysis of DNA samples has shown that on the female line, the Ashkenazim are descended not from the Near East, but from southern and western Europe. Okay, so goes on, and here you can see Ashkenazi Jewish lineages were among a large quantity of publicly available mitochondrial genomes of people from Europe, the Caucasus, and the Middle East that entered the analysis. It was discovered that in the vast majority of cases, Ashkenazi lineages are most closely related to those of southern and western Europe, and that they had been present in Europe for many thousands of years. Okay, now pictured left is a painting by Maurice Gaultier from 1878 called "Jews Praying in the Synagogue on Yom Kippur," and is displayed at the Tel Aviv Museum of Art. These are Ashkenazi Jews are depicted in this painting. And the article, this is what a lot of people who have used this article to throw out their theology that the Jews are the number one, the number one Manison Antichrists, blah blah blah, totally throwing the Vatican out, or the Vatican plays second fiddle to that of the Rothschilds, who are of a Jewish descent, basically, and they don't take in context that the Rothschilds, especially Lionel Rothschild, was a Knight of Malta, who has their orders from the Jesuits, who has their orders from the Pope. So basically, the Rothschilds play second fiddle to the Vatican. The Rothschilds are the guardians of the treasury in the Vatican, which means basically, if you, let's say you have a bank account, Okay, you put money in the bank. All right. The clerk there, or the bankers in that bank are subject to you because that is your money. Okay. It's the same thing how it goes with the Rothschilds. The Vatican puts money into the bank. It's the Vatican's money, but the Rothschilds are guarding it. So therefore, you have the Rothschild bankers who are the guardians of the Vatican treasury. You see how that works? So those that will say, oh, the Jewish conspiracy, this and these types of things, a lot of that, there's a lot of factual information you can find in those realms, like from Benjamin Friedman and these types of. There's a lot of factual information you can find there, but they only stop at the Zionist Jewish movement. Okay, but they won't go further than that. Why? Number one, Benjamin Friedman is a Catholic convert, and a lot of and these types of things. So they won't. They'll go as far as they can without what's the word? Pinpointing the direct source. And what I'm doing here throughout this whole series is basically showing you from the realms of history prior to Papal Rome, going into Papal Rome, going into post-pagan Rome, and the pagan Roman Empire was done away with, and Papal Rome was introduced. We're going through all of that. And you're going to see that the belief system of early Christians is totally pretty much extinct in the modern Christian view. And that is part and parcel due to the article that I'm going to share with you that was done by two Jesuit priests who introduced the Counter-Reformation, who introduced the realms of dispensationalism and the realms of futurism to basically take away the sting of the Pope as being the Antichrist, and therefore thus a lot of Christians today who believe in a rapture or whatever look at the Pope as just the false prophet and not the Antichrist, because the Antichrist is yet future, and when the church is raptured, there's 7 years left for the Jews and these types of things. That is not what the early church writers believed. That is not what the early church writers taught. That is not what the Reformation believed and taught. This is only a theology that basically started in 1798. Okay? And so that's basically what I want to shed the light here. Okay, so moving further in this article, this suggests that even though Jewish men may indeed have migrated into Europe from Palestine around 2,000 years ago, they seem to have married European women, states Professor Richards. Okay, so they married outside their group, basically. This seems to have happened first along the Mediterranean, especially in Italy, and later, but probably to a lesser extent, in Western and Central Europe. Okay, so before there were any Jews that migrated into Khazaria and these types of things, there was marrying outside their class going on in Rome and Italy prior to. Okay. This suggests that in the early years of the diaspora, Judaism took in many converts from amongst the European population, but they were mainly recruited from amongst women. Thus, on the female line of descent, the Ashkenazim primarily traced their ancestry neither to Palestine nor to Khazaria in the North Caucasus, as has also been suggested, but to southern and western Europe. Okay, that's the point I wanted to bring here. I want to read that again. The Ashkenazim primarily traced their ancestry neither to Palestine nor to Khazaria in the North Caucasus, as has also been suggested, but to southern and western Europe. So these people that are saying, oh, that the Ashkenazim Jews are all descendants of the Khazars and these types of things, this ancestry from the maternal line basically proves that to be the exact opposite. My when I look at the whole Khazaria thing, I look at those that were living in Khazaria at the time that the empire was around, and prior to its dying days, that they migrated north into what is Russia. Okay? You know, and that is basically why I personally believe there are so many Russian Jews today. Is those are the ones that migrated north, are the ones that came from Khazaria. And most of them, obviously, there were probably some Judeans of a physical descent that could trace their line all the way back to Abraham and these types of things. More than likely, chances are, yes. But the thing is there were a lot of converts in that time. And I believe those converts probably migrated north, and throughout the generations, that is where basically your Khazaria thing is today. That's basically where they have migrated to. Ashkenazim basically has no ancestry dating to, you know, that is directly descended from the Khazars. Neither to Palestine either. Okay. But again, a lot of people have used this article in the past to prove the latter. That, oh, the Ashkenazim are Khazars and these types of things. I don't really, I can't really stand by that. You know, as I said, if anything that has the closest resemblance of a physical lineage to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the patriarchs in Genesis, it would be the Sephardic, because the Sephardics have been renegated, or not renegated, but have been ensconced in the Middle East forever. You know, they may have not been in Palestine, but they were living in the Middle East region all their lives. You know, they you know, and yes, you have your migrants into the U.S. and these stuff, you know, and stuff like that, but it's you know, a lot of this stuff just leads to a lot of confusion. But what I do want to do, especially in videos to follow, is I want to basically look at the three different sects. I want to look at Khazaria, I want to look at Ashkenazim, and I want to look at Sephardic. Okay? And the two words Ashkenazim and Sephardic are Hebraic terms which are found in the Bible. And we're going to have to look at these two and basically see percentage-wise, you know, roughly sort of, you know, of who is whom. Okay? Again, it is my conviction that the strongest possibility of physical, fleshly born Jews that are of the Sephardic origin has more of an ancestry that dates back to Genesis. Ashkenazim and the Khazars are merely a newer sect. Is basically what I'm trying to say. So I hopefully this has cleared some of the matter up, you know, because we're basically looking at a fleshly geographical lesson here, to basically kind of continue on until we get further on down the centuries, which I want to, which we will be doing. And I think the next thing I want to look at is the French Revolution and Napoleon. A lot of very interesting things going on with him. So I'm going to close this video out, and then the next video we're going to kind of go back and bring back to remembrance the of how all roads basically lead right back to Rome. And hopefully, again, hopefully this has cleared the air of what some may have preconceived in my previous videos that seem to be very controversial. And yes, they are controversial. But I am by no way taking stances with anybody. I am not standing for anybody. I'm not standing against anybody. This is just, this is just what I've been called to do. This is the series I've been called to put forth. And I'm trying to be as truthful as I can with the information that I'm given. And you have to do with it what you will. But hopefully this has cleared the air of any misconceived notions directed towards me that any might have had. So until next time, truth be told, truth be known, stay safe, God bless, we will see you next time. Bye-bye. Greetings, everybody. And this is why I'm bringing you this article. Now, when I talked about DNA in the past in recent videos, what I should have mentioned is what I failed to mention is that what DNA proves, and a lot of people that are in the realms borderlining racism and these types of things will use this to basically subjugate those of Judaism, just because they don't have 100%. I want to welcome you back to another edition of the Monarchy of Israel series. And in this video, I'm just going to share this article, but then I'm going to kind of bring back to remembrance of the reason why I started out the series revolving around the Jesuits and the Vatican and the Counter-Reformation that basically started the movement of dispensationalism is going to come full circle, and that today's Jews are really caught in the crosshairs of deception and lies, even in the ranks of their own religion of Judaism. And and that's basically what I'm doing, is basically showing is the aspect that they too are involved in this great delusion that is really taking shape throughout this whole planet. But before I get into continuing this interlude video, basically, because basically the video that follows, we're basically going to have a geography lesson, okay, and these types of things. Descendancy to Abraham, which no one on this planet does. They will automatically throw them in the Khazar camp. Now, I do want to mention that Khazaria and Khazar, that is not a conspiracy theory, that is fact. There was a kingdom that was named Khazaria, and there was a king that upheld Judaism as its authoritative religion, and there were converts, a lot of converts. Majority of the people that lived there were converts into Judaism, thus making themselves Jews. And we're going to go into that. We're going to go into the